Peace. This is S.S.Oracle. My name is Savvy. I wanted to come on and give this message about self-identity and in relation to ego, because the ego is our identity, right? As origin, the ego is Latin for I am. So I am being a definitive statement of your existence and your beingness, right? You say, I am. I'm here. I am. So the ego and the self-identity is a statement of beingness and existence. One thing that I've learned personally on my path through gaining knowledge and experience and gaining clarity through spirit is there may come a time, and this message is not for everyone, there may come a time where you realize that your primary identity is that of a spiritual and vibrational, energetic being. And your identity with race, ethnicity, culture, class, gender becomes secondary to that. This isn't to say that it's not important. This isn't to say that it doesn't matter, because there are realities that we deal with in this physical world that are based on things such as race, class, and gender. So we don't completely dismiss the reality of the physical experience and the ego identity that we have with it. But from a higher consciousness perspective, there may come a time where you realize that your identity extends and expands beyond that physical condition and that physical reality, and therefore your motivations and your interests are centered in the spiritual and energetic realities. Okay? So for myself, as an example, what I am, right? What I am as a spiritual and energetic being is foundational to my existence. And with having that awareness helps me to understand the experiences I have within myself and on the outside with other people. I think it was a Nikola Tesla quote that says to look at things from the perspective of energy. And I feel people may resonate with that, and they may know that on the surface, but can still be greatly affected by the realities of the physical. And I believe that it takes much introspection and honest, compassionate, patient self-reflection to get to a point where you can detach from your identities with physical realities and physical identity. And I can understand and perceive how difficult that may be for people, especially if you're still connected to certain people or in certain environments where physical reality is greatly reinforced and there isn't much support when it comes to communication or discussing the processes of spiritual enlightenment or elevation and ascension and energetic healing and that kind of work. If that's not being reinforced or supported, the chances that we're brought down to seeing ourselves from a limited perspective and from a limited identity are higher. So one of the most significant things that we can do as conscious people, as conscious beings, is to have a means to keeping our vibrational frequency raised. And what I mean by that is having practices, right? Be it meditations, prayers, um, working out, exercise, fasting, dieting, journaling, practicing silence, and things like that, being out in nature, all those things that we consider high vibrational. There's also the spiritual foundations that help with raising the vibrational frequency of your more esoteric identity. I'll say it like that, right? Your more esoteric identity. And spiritually, it can lie in the foundations and spiritual virtues. Think the fruits of the Spirit and how frequently we exercise, embody, and emit those spiritual principles and virtues of kindness, right? Gentleness, self-control, love, peace, joy, faithfulness, okay? How often, right? That's frequency. How often we embody and emit those qualities and characteristics on top of how frequently we engage in our higher vibrational practices is what helps us to see ourselves from our esoteric identity primarily. Again, this message may not be for everybody. This is part of breaking the illusions of your ego and who you think you are, right? Again, I mentioned the what I am, what you are, and who you are. See, who we are has a lot of experiences and memories attached to it based on the experiences that we've had in this lifetime and who we're told we are based on what we look like, based on where we're from geographically, environmentally, based on our anatomy. And we know that we exist beyond that. And so my point of this message is, and really a challenge as an individual listening who considers themselves to be conscious and considers themselves to be on a path of ascension or expansion or enlightenment, to practice knowing yourself as something beyond your physical identity. Okay? Because spiritual virtue is not physical, right? Spiritual virtues are not based on what we look like. You can be Black, you can be Asian, you can be Caucasian, you can be Latino, and still embody spiritual principles. You can have practices that are not gender-based, right? Or racially based. It's a part of seeing yourself as more, because we are more. And that can take some time, okay? It can take a lot of discipline. It does take a lot of discipline and a lot of determination to see yourself beyond the confines and the limits and the definitions. Because part of the problem is we attempt to live up to certain physical standards and ideals. And part of having a spiritual awakening is seeing yourself beyond those standards, those socially constructed standards. Okay? We break through that conditioning when we awaken spiritually to begin to see ourselves more holistically, more than from more than the physical. Okay? So I hope that message was clear for anyone who needed to hear it, that we extend far beyond who we are, that who we are is a coagulation of experiences in this world. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with honing in on your unique soul expression, okay? Because that's what that is. We have a unique soul expression where we're here on this earth, in this reality, to express ourselves. And so we have a unique way to do that. And we embody the race or the culture or the ethnicity that we have, and that's aided in who we are. However, as we elevate and as we expand our consciousness, we have to begin to see ourselves beyond the limitations of a physical experience. So long as we have an experience here, right? We can be identified by things such as race, gender, culture, ethnicity, class. But just knowing that we are more than that, knowing that there's something deeper than that, is enough to set us on a path to truly realizing what we may be here to do as individuals, okay? In terms of connecting with a higher power and connecting with others. I have to say this, and this may ruffle some feathers, but I trust that my aunt will put this in order where necessary. Some of us have made our entire personality our race. Some of us have made our entire identity our race. And there's a time that is coming or may have come to see yourself more than that. I feel like that was redundant, but maybe it had to be spoken that way, that your entire identity is not your race. Your entire identity is not your gender. Okay? Again, I hope that message was clear. I hope that everyone is safe and continues to remain blessed and secured from a spiritual place. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.